Hello all. I was here last year when I was telling you a little bit about what we'd hoped to do, and now I'm here to tell you what we're going to do and what we've done, as well as what we're planning to do to grow. So many of you will know that West Red Lake actually started as buying a group of people wanting to buy a property in a prolific camp, and that was backed by a guy named Frank Gustra. He thought that Red Lake continues to be unexplored, and as the adage goes, you look for gold in the shadow of a headframe. So we bought what we're going to talk to you about at the end, the Rowan project, and had the good fortune of buying pure gold assets that unfortunately went distressed in November of 2022, and we closed that deal in 2023. So in less than 2 years, we've raised over $100 million, and I'm going to tell you what we did with it. I think. So you've heard all about forward-looking statements, so I won't tell you about it. I'm pleased to be here within Fort William First Nation. In a different life, years ago, I helped do a bunch of economic development work with Fort William, so it's pleased to be back in Thunder Bay. We are within the Treaty 3 territory and have partnership agreements with Wabaskang and Seul First Nation. That was an arrangement that Pure Gold worked hard to develop and that we hope to live up to. So the Madsen mine, what is it? As you may know from Fred Moda, who may or may not be in the room, Red Lake is celebrating 100th anniversary of gold discovery, and Madsen was part of that way back when. All the little communities in and around Madsen and Red Lake, Bombertown, Koshner, Starrett Olson, they were all mine towns. So we've got a long history, and we've got great data, believe it or not. The folks who built and surveyed the mine underground, even in the 30s, did a great job. But we're fast forwarding to really May 2025 when we started the restart. And I'm going to tell you about what's happened since then. The goal for West Red Lake was to have an anchor, which is Madsen, and build out in a hub and spoke kind of concept. So we'd have access to other deposits that the likes of Evolution would find too small to put through their mill, but would be perfect for ours. So in the past 2 years, we've raised over $100 million. We've actually focused on doing what Pure Gold didn't have time to do, and that's really looking at drilling. So by the end of this year, we'll be over 100,000 meters of drilling. And that's definition drilling, understanding how we could actually get close to the old stopes. And some of my colleagues, Mike Prosick, who was here, he was at the time, and we've got Joel and Laura over here as well. So if you have questions, we can talk to them about what we need and what they did. But they were really looking at how do we mine efficiently. What people had heard about Madsen mine was that it was there was high grade, but it was very difficult to mine. And with old sort of big stopes or big equipment, it might not work. It might not be efficient. We'd have way too much waste rock. So we spent the last year building critical infrastructure and understanding what the mine was about. So what this slide sort of tells you is what people thought in 2019 versus what we believe in 2025 of how the gold operates. So nothing in gold mining or in geology is absolutely linear, but that bullet near the bottom, mine the right rocks and mine it efficiently, is the key to what we're trying to do. So how do we do it? Again, there was a lot of tight infrastructure. We had two portals, an east and a west portal. The east portal we couldn't access and bring ore out during the evenings because we crossed municipal roads. So we invested in what you can sort of see, the green line. I don't know if this is a pointer. The green line, essentially a connection drift, a 1.4 kilometer underground tunnel that allows us to access the two portals. It gives us a lot more flexibility with equipment and material handling and movement. So it was a significant investment. We've continued to de-water, and we purchased new equipment. We were really, at the start, we were cannibalizing one piece of equipment for another, and when you only have one or two pieces and they're both down, your development is stymied. So this is some of how we spent that $100 million I mentioned. In the lower pictures, you'll see a dry. That dry is built with partnership with Shared Spirits, which is the economic arm of Wabaskang and Seul. That tailings dam that you see in the middle picture was also a joint venture. So in less than 2 years, we've had over $24 million worth of Indigenous joint ventures. So I think that's pretty darn good in terms of the capital spend of over $100 million that we've done. As well, you'll see that we had a new primary crusher. The mine ramp up. So that was the challenge. We've got asked repeatedly. Pure Gold shut down in November 2022. They were operating up until that point. What took you so long? And the slides I just showed you are an illustration of what we tried to do to get it right, to make sure that we were ready for a restart. We can't have a false start in mining. It just won't go. So we did a lot of test mining. We did use test equipment, just test mining, test drilling. We called it a bulk sample, which is what that previous slide showed, to try to get an understanding of how our mill would respond. We fed it waste, we fed it low grade and then high grade ore to test our thesis between geology, mining, and recovery. Again, we took our time and it'll pay off. What many of you will see in this slide is what's constantly called the Lassonde curve. And so we sort of modeled it in terms of where we are as if we were a new company in a new mine. So really, the discovery happened already with Pure Gold, clearly. But we talk about that as our restart. So if you model even our share price, not to push the share prices, but the share price, this is how it's sort of tracked. And so after the bulk sample results come through, it's kind of, it's not that sexy. Starting to be production, which is that second upper line. That's where we're going to see share price appreciation, and we already have. So when you're down in that trough, we were about 60 cents. We're now $1.10, just to give you a sense of what's happened very quickly over just a few weeks, frankly. The gold price doesn't hurt either, to be fair. But the operational investment that we're going to make and then our growth narrative is really what's going to propel West Red Lake. The pre-feasibility and base case, again, simply, I won't read it. The goal is really 800 tons a day with efficiencies. Pure Gold ran their mill at over 1,000 tons a day. But what you have to run a mill of 800 tons a day, you've got to make sure you've got enough ore to surface. So that's what we're planning to do. We've got great recovery. The mill works fantastic. We had the great fortune, I think Frank Gooster called it the deal of the century, because we were able to buy the asset so, unfortunately, so distressed, but so cheap. That's that second last bullet. It's just that there's really no capital we required in terms of infrastructure besides the camp. I'm not the geologist, but what I'll tell you about this, these slides, is that our definition drilling and our re-drilling essentially illustrated that we had access to far more ore than we had originally anticipated or that Pure Gold had knowledge of. And that, again, takes because of the time of our definition drilling and getting access. So there was the connection drift, for example, provides us greater access to do drilling in the underground that hadn't happened before. And so, looking at the lenses of gold and geology, we were able to illustrate where there was actually far more grade than anticipated. So that's where you see these 212 to 320% increase in contained resources. Again, this is where we spent a lot of that money in terms of almost 100,000 meters of drilling. We look at this as regional drilling in many respects because it's from the underground, but some of the drilling that we did was further afield. So Starrett Olson, for example. But this is all that we think we can get. Now, deep down, George Peary, the Minister Peary, would tell you that we call it the 8th zone. That 8th zone has been infamous because it resembles the Goldcorp famous strike. It's got similar geology as well as similar grades. We won't be able to get there for a number of years. We continue to do dewater and ramp down to that. That will be obviously in our future. So again, a bit of another investor narrative. We believe that we're doing it right now. We're commissioning well. We'll then be moving into an optimization phase as you do, and we're currently poised for growth. So Fork is one of the deposits in the back. It'll be to the sort of northeast. And then, of course, the Rowan deposit, which I'll talk about next. So we believe that there's phenomenal opportunity to drill in and around the Madsen mine and through the underground access ore. So Rowan, this is where it all started, frankly, for us. It was, again, a previously explored mining area, and there was recent development, even up until the 80s. But it's a remnant mine. But this is where we started. As soon as we started, we thought we're going to go right into Advanced X. It had a mineralization and a mineral resource. And that Advanced X process, which I'll tell you in a minute, takes a lot of time. We just released this past month, a month and a half ago, the PEA. So we've got about a 70 million CapEx, and that's for just essentially underground and camp facilities and the related sort of water treatment plant and whatnot. So the goal will be to move this ore, as I mentioned earlier, the hub and spoke kind of concept, to the Madsen mill to be processed. So I've mentioned that one already. So this is a Rowan timeline. Again, in 2023, we started, late 2022, we started doing exploration at Rowan just to update that resource. We then immediately started environmental baseline and data collection. We're going to hear from, I think, the minister later on about how the new P1, what's it, Tara? How that process is going to work. We don't know. We've been asked by investors, will it speed up Rowan permitting? I don't know the answer to that, but we're doing all the environmental baseline such that we're ready if we needed to do an environmental assessment or species at risk evaluation. We've got all that data. So we spent the last 2+ years gathering that data, and what that means is from left to the right, that means in this coming year we'll be looking into permit applications and final design with the goal of having approvals late 2027, early 2028 for the start of construction. So that's, again, another phenomenal opportunity for us, about 35,000 ounces a year to add feed to the Madsen mine. Again, having that 2 feed sources allows us to continue to advance development work at the mine, but also have that access to high-grade resources. It's about, we think, about 11 trucks that would come down the Madsen road, the Nungussa road to the mine. So it's a fantastic opportunity for us. We don't believe it's the last. As you may know, any of you who know Red Lake, there are a number of ex-producers that have properties throughout that camp that, again, underscore what I said at the beginning, that are not being developed because it doesn't suit a major like an Evolution, but it does absolutely serve a small company like Madsen and West Red Lake. So I've got 2 or 3 minutes to go. Is there any questions for anybody?